MySQL. I'm working on a PC, and I imagine the installation is different if you've got a Mac. I'm sorry, I'm not working on a Mac. You'll have to figure that out on your own. You might watch through this and see how it looks on a PC first. Okay, so I've gotten into Google and searched on MySQL, and I'm clicking on Downloads. Which brings me to the MySQL download site. And I want to use the community version. And where is it? There we go. It's down here below the Enterprise Edition, below Cluster CGE, Community GPL. And the GPL is the license. And I've got no reason to think that I guess MySQL Community Server would be a good server. It already knows I'm on Windows. And let's go for it. I'm clicking on MySQL installer for Windows. And I've got choices. I've got a tiny version that's going to do a lot of downloading later, or I can have the big version, which will do some of the downloading up front. It would be good to log in, sign up, all that sort of stuff. Sounds great. I'm just going to start the download and click on Save File. Oh, I'm in Firefox. Other browsers might have different places you find your downloads, but in Firefox it's up here. I'm going to click on the installer that I just opened. Windows is concerned that I'm downloading an executable file from the web. MySQL is a reputable place to download from. Make sure you're downloading from mysql.com. Other than that, you should be good to go. And configuration. Community means this is a free version. It's intended for you to download and install in your machine so you could learn how to use MySQL. If you're in a company and you're going to be using it professionally, then you ought to be downloading one of the versions that you pay for and actually paying for it. Okay. Windows wants to know that it's okay to make changes to the device. Yes, it is. And there are different parts of the software, so it may ask me that multiple times. Let's see. Here's the installer. I want the developer. That is, this is all products needed for MySQL development purposes. And it's so that you can learn how to use SQL. And I have 2 drives on my machine. My D drive is the large one, and so I like to install stuff there. You won't get this probably. I installed this once before and then disinstalled it. It kind of makes MySQL nervous, but I think it'll be okay. Yes, I do. Execute runs these downloads. Looks like it's downloading in parallel. For your amusement, you can look up any of these things in Google and get information about what they are. For right now, oh man, miserable. I don't know why I'll be having all those errors. We'll try again. Let's do one at a time. Can we try different ones? There we go. Everything downloaded. I don't know why the errors happened. Now it's all ready to install, and we're going to start installing it. This takes a while, and so to amuse ourselves while it's taking a while, I will share with you a PowerPoint I created about Anki, or Anki. Yeah, I think it's going to take yeah. Let me share this PowerPoint with you to pass the time, and then we'll come back and see how we're doing. So in the instructions to learning conversational SQL, before we got to downloading MySQL, I suggested you might want to see what Anki is about, and I recommend that. Let's see if I can get this to, there we go. And this is just a presentation to give you an idea of what that's like. The idea is to use flashcards, even though you're no longer in school. And some examples of that. Here are two people in a meeting, and the guy on the left, he's looking down because he doesn't remember the name of the person he's sitting across from. But the woman on the right has, after she was in the previous meeting, she got the name, wrote it down, and then put it into her flashcards. And the result is she knows the person's name, Sam. This is something that was important to me. I recently started a new job where I had a ton of people I had to meet and learn their names. And it was great to have flashcards so the next time I saw them, I knew what their names were. Not my usual lifestyle, but something possible with flashcards. This is what I really think this is important for you right now if you're learning SQL. Is there learning commands, and in this case, it's using windowing functions in SQL that she's trying to remember, and options are on the left here, row number over partition by client order by date, or is it row number with parentheses beforehand over partition, or is it row number over partition by client order by date with no parentheses? I wish I flashcarded it. And this is basically the situation. When you learn how to do something like windowing functions, you're going to remember them for the rest of the day and probably the next day. And if you don't use them for the next couple of weeks, they're gone. You will not remember them anymore. If you flashcard them, then you will still remember them 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. Here's another situation. You read a book. It was great. It was fascinating. You thought about it for weeks, and then weeks go by, and then you join up with your book club, and everybody else read the book the previous day, and now you don't remember any of the details. So the way life goes is that we forget a lot of stuff. You probably remember the title and maybe the name of the lead character, but you're not remembering all the details. So sensible idea, when you read a book that is really important to you, that there are ideas in there that you don't want to forget, you create a flashcard for them. And if you only remember flashcards from when you were a kid in school, that may sound crazy. And it is the case. 2/3 of U.S. students use flashcards, and their grades are about 4% better than the third who do not use flashcards. But everything that they learn extra, they lose pretty quickly after the final exam. So this is not a way to have a better life. It's just a way to get better grades. But that's in school. And things are different in school versus life. What I'm suggesting, flashcards for everyday life. In school, the purpose is to get good grades. In your life now, the purpose is to remember. And so in school, you stop using the flashcards after class was over. In everyday life, you're going to use them ongoing. And that means that you'll continue remembering them. In school, you often use flashcards without understanding. In flashcards for everyday life, in your life now, you're going to add retention to your understanding. So you understand things and then you flashcard them, and that means you remember them. Also, in school, you tended to use every flashcard every session. In everyday life, so I actually do this. I've got one session per day, and there are no more than 20 new cards per session. And generally, I look at between 10 and 40 cards a day, even though I have several hundred flashcards that I use. In school, the flashcard pile can be overwhelming because there are a lot of cards without known answers. I don't know if you remember that experience. I actually was part of the third who never used flashcards, so I'm. This is what I hear other people experience. Um, the flashcards in everyday life, the cards are scheduled to reduce studying and increase retention, and so you only have a few cards that you look at that you might not remember the answer to. And this is how it works. Um, you might add a bunch of cards on Sunday the 30th. You're going to see them again the following day, but then there's a gap, and you'll see them again 4 days later. And then there's another gap, and you're going to see them, what, over 2 weeks later. And then the next time will be in the next month. But on the 1st of February, um, you can start adding new cards. And you'll see those on the February 1st when you see them, and then you'll see them again the next day. And then they are spread out, just like the first ones were spread out. And then you can add more cards, which also get spread out, and so on until you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 10 different sets of cards, but you're only seeing one set at a time, and they're all spaced out so that you don't forget them. So I recommend Anki, which is available at AnkiWeb. It might be AnkiWeb, I don't know, apps.ankiweb.net. It looks like this. And there's a card on one side. There's the answer. If I get it wrong, I click on again, and I see it again in a minute. If it's hard, I click on it again. I see it in 6 minutes. If I got it well, I won't see it for 10 minutes. If I feel it was easy, I won't see it for 4 days. For cards that I have seen a bunch of other times, if I just remembered it and it wasn't hard or easy, then I won't see it for 9 days. And that's kind of most cards. After you've seen them a while, you're not going to see them for quite a while. In any case, okay, there's the presentation about Anki. I will get out of this and see how we're doing. Yeah, we're still installing. It takes a while. I'm going to pause the recording and we'll come back. I'll come back to you once it's completely done installing. But basically at this point, go get yourself if you're installing it on your own machine, go take a break, go for a walk, get out of the house, go walk around, get some exercise, and come back and it'll have taken care of you. All right, I'm opening my software and pausing. All right, I went for a walk for 20 minutes, and this is all finished since then. One of the products did not install. That's the connector for Python. I'm guessing that means that if I'm going to program things in Python and have a connection to the MySQL database, it won't work. But that's not what we're really working on right now, so that's okay. I click on Next. And I'm ready to configure. Next. And we got some choices here. Development computer is a good idea. Many other applications we installed on it. Minimum amount of memory to be used by MySQL. There's information here. You could jot these down if you wanted. 3306 and 33060. I don't think it's going to come up. But and I also suspect that that's information you can get later, the port and the X protocol port. Again, probably not going to be an issue for us. I'm going with the default on authentication. Next. And now I need to put in a password. And pick a good password. It's got to be eight letters long, 8 characters long at least. It doesn't love my passwords, but that's okay. I need to have a user. I'm not sure. Well, yeah. Gonna add me. And a password. Probably you can use the same one. I'm using a different one. Again, it doesn't love those either. I'm using the default for host and having me be a database administrator. Okay, next. Configure MySQL service as a Windows service. Sure, I'm using all the defaults here. Next. And I'm clicking on execute to do these things. Initializing the database may take a long time. I did this once before, and I don't think it took that long. If it does take a whole lot of time, I'll go back to this video when I'm done and cut out the wait time. Okay, I take it back. I'm gonna pause recording again. It got past it. Now I'm going to finish in a second. Finish. Config next. I don't know whether the default will do the trick. Let's try the default and make sure, and we'll see whether it works. Worst comes to worst, we can come back. Configuration next. The root. That's the first password we put in. We're going to check that password. Yep, connection succeeded. We're going to execute these things. And it's running the scripts, getting things started. It didn't have a thing saying it's going to take a long time. Well, I was thinking I might mention that I'm doing this with MySQL because I thought I should do it with MySQL or with Microsoft SQL Server or with Oracle's SQL database software. And I installed one MySQL and it's fine. And I thought, why bother? And so I'm just doing that. I don't, all three seem about as good to me. There probably are reasons why one or the other is better than the others, but I don't know them. So we're just going with MySQL because it happened to be the first I looked at. Finish. Okay, next. Installation project completed. We're going to start MySQL afterwards and start. I don't need the shell. Workbench is what I'm going to be using all the time. So I'm going to click Start the Workbench and Finish. And we finished, and the workbench is going to start. There it is. And now you're going to be coming back to this software all the time. This is the software you're going to be interacting with MySQL with. And so if you were me, you would right-click on the taskbar and pin this to the taskbar so you could access it later. Alrighty, I'm going to connect to my local instance. Got to give my password again. That's the first one. Okay. Doo-doo-doo. And it has pulled up the last query I had previously. I guess when I disinstalled this so I could reinstall it, it didn't take it away. Just so you know, if you click up here on the right, you can get something. Don't exactly know what that does for you, but there it is. If you click on the bottom, you can get information about the output. I don't find that really useful. Stuff on the left, though, is kind of helpful. It has information you can click on. How's the server doing? There's a button to click on for data export and for data import. But let's just make sure that SQL is running. SQL runs with select statements. And you're going to select something. In this case, I'm going to get it to do a little math. And then to run that, I hold down the Control key and press Enter. And 5 times 7 divided by 2, it feels is 17.5. Actually, it's worth asking, how is it doing its math? So 2 times 3 divided by 6. Oh, it's going to be 1 no matter what, right? Yeah. You can see the answers appear down below. And if you wanted to, you could export these to an external file. What I want to do right now, though, is I want to save my query. And surely I get to rename it somehow. Maybe not. Why don't I start a new query? File, new query tab, that'll work. And I'm going to make a comment here and save this script, that is the SQL, to a file, and it'll ask me, there we go, test SQL 2, and it's saving it to my documents. Fine place to save it. It also saved my first query to those documents. So save. Now I can close, just so you know that that's how you close. And I have pinned it to my taskbar, so when I click on it again on the taskbar, upsy daisy, up it pops. And I open my connection. I have to type in my password again. I'm connected. It actually, because I didn't close my windows, they're still there, but so I can close them. And then file, open, SQL script. It goes to my documents, and I could pull up my SQL script and get it back. This is just a comment. All right. So that is downloading and installing MySQL, at least in a Windows environment.